It began the night she sat alone at a table for one quiet, invisible, forgotten, and then he appeared. 3 black SUVs, a storm in his eyes, and a single command that rewrote her fate. Tonight, you're my wife. From that moment, her world became a dangerous dance between fear and desire, a fake marriage built to deceive a rival, but destined to uncover something real. He was a man who ruled through silence, whose enemies bowed before his name. She was the woman who would teach him how to feel again. Together, they crossed the line between survival and surrender, between control and love. And when darkness came for them both, only one truth remained. Sometimes danger is destiny. Before we begin, if you believe that love can rise even from the shadows, make sure to subscribe. It's free and helps us share more stories from Desire Tales. The candles flickered across the pristine white tablecloth, casting unsteady shadows that matched my unsettled heart. Silverware gleamed under the dim lighting of Stellato, the kind of upscale Italian restaurant where the menu had no prices, and the waitstaff moved like ghosts, silent, efficient, and practically invisible. Just like me, I smoothed the wrinkles of my black dress, the only decent one I owned, and tried to ignore the pitying glances from the hostess who had seated me 15 minutes ago. Table for 1.3 simple words that had felt like a confession of failure when I'd spoken them. Would you care for another glass of wine while you wait, miss? The waiter appeared at my elbow, his voice professionally neutral, but I caught the underlying assumption nobody was coming. No, thank you. My voice emerged steadier than I felt. Just the check, please. This dinner was a mistake, a desperate attempt to celebrate my 27th birthday alone, rather than in my cramped studio apartment with its leaky faucet and temperamental heating. The splurge had already cost me half my weekly budget. Single motherhood didn't leave room for luxuries like $12 glasses of house wine. As the waiter disappeared, I fumbled for my phone, pretending to check messages that wouldn't be there. My daughter, Emma, was with my neighbor, Mrs. Patel, tonight. At 6 years old, Emma deserved better than what I could give her, better than a mother who worked 2 jobs and still struggled to keep up with rent, better than hand-me-down clothes and denied requests for ballet lessons. That I'd been invisible my entire life. To my foster parents, who collected checks. To the teachers who never noticed my straight A's. To Emma's father, who disappeared the moment I told him I was pregnant. And now, in a restaurant filled with couples and business dinners, I was invisible again. That's when I felt it, a shift in the atmosphere, like the air before a storm. The restaurant's ambient chatter dropped by several decibels. Through the front windows, I watched 3 black SUVs pull up to the curb. Sleek and menacing men in dark suits emerged first, scanning the area with practiced efficiency before one opened the rear door of the middle vehicle. He stepped out like he owned not just the car or the restaurant, but the very ground beneath his feet. Even at a distance, power emanated from him, tall and broad-shouldered in a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. Dark hair styled impeccably, shadow of stubble precisely maintained along a jaw that looked carved from granite. He moved with lethal grace like a predator who never needed to rush because nothing ever escaped him. That I couldn't look away. No one could. The restaurant fell almost silent as he entered, flanked by 2 men who might have been twins in their matching suits and vigilant expressions. The maitre d' practically sprinted to greet him, bowing slightly with a deference I'd never witnessed in real life. Mr. Castiano, what an honor. Your usual table is ready. Castiano. The name registered faintly in my memory, something from the local news, perhaps. Some wealthy businessman or politician I couldn't quite place. That I forced my attention back to my half-eaten meal, trying to become invisible for entirely different reasons. Now men like him lived in a different universe from women like me. I didn't belong in his orbit, and drawing attention from powerful men never ended well for women struggling to make ends meet. I signaled the waiter again, suddenly desperate to leave, but he was nowhere to be found. The entire staff seemed magnetically pulled toward the restaurant's new arrival. I reached for my purse to extract cash and flee, when I felt rather than saw someone approach my table. "The lady will be joining me tonight." The voice was deep, accented slightly with Italian undercurrents, and brooked absolutely no argument. I froze, my hand still in my purse, and looked up slowly. Up close, he was even more intimidating. Dark eyes the color of espresso regarded me with an intensity that made my skin prickle with awareness. There was nothing friendly in his expression, just cool assessment and something else I couldn't name that made my heart hammer against my ribs. "I'm sorry." The words came out as barely more than a whisper. The corner of his mouth lifted in something too predatory to be called a smile. "I said." He lowered his voice and leaned closer, the scent of expensive cologne and something darker, dangerous invading my senses. "Tonight you're my wife." Before I could process what was happening, he slid into the chair across from me and nodded to one of his men. Instantly, the waiter who had been ignoring me materialized at our table, looking simultaneously terrified and eager to please. "Mr. Castiano, we're honored. A bottle of the 1982 Brunello," he interrupted without looking at the waiter. His eyes remained fixed on me, dissecting, calculating. "And we'll need privacy." The waiter vanished, and the restaurant's other patrons seemed to deliberately avert their gazes, suddenly finding their meals fascinating. I clutched my napkin under the table, my knuckles turning white. "I think there's been a mistake," I managed, my voice barely audible. "I don't know you, Alejandro Castiano," he said, extending a hand across the table. "Though you may call me Sandro. And no, Carmia, there's no mistake." His hand remained extended between us, adorned with a single platinum ring on his right hand. The heavy signet ring bore some sort of family crest, a lion perhaps, though I couldn't make out the details. "I should go," I whispered, glancing around desperately for an escape route. But his men had positioned themselves strategically near the exits. "My daughter is with Mrs. Patel in apartment 3C until 9 o'clock. She's watching cartoons and eating pizza with pepperoni. No mushrooms." His expression never changed as he delivered this information that no stranger should know. "You have time." A chill slid down my spine. "How do you?" "I make it my business to know things, Cara." He withdrew his hand when I didn't take it, but somehow the gesture felt like he was granting me temporary reprieve rather than accepting rejection. "Your name is Olivia Reed. 27 as of today. Single mother to Emma, age 6. You work at Meridian Insurance during the day and waitress at the Blue Orchid 3 nights a week. Your rent is due on the 1st. You're 3 months behind on your student loans, and Emma needs dental work you can't afford." Each fact landed like a physical blow. I felt stripped bare, exposed in a way that went beyond the physical. "Are you threatening me?" For the first time, something like genuine amusement flickered in his eyes. "If I were threatening you, Tesoro, you wouldn't need to ask." The wine arrived, presented with reverent hands by the sommelier. Sandro never took his eyes off me as the ritual of opening and pouring commenced. When we were alone again, he lifted his glass. "To new beginnings," he said, his voice a low command that I didn't reach for my glass. "What do you want from me?" "For now, I want you to drink your wine, eat your dinner, and pretend we're celebrating our anniversary." His gaze flicked briefly to the restaurant entrance. "The man who just walked in, don't look, believes I'm a happily married man. It's in both our interests that he continues to believe this." Against my better judgment, curiosity sparked. "Why?" "Because Olivia Reed." He said my name like he was tasting it. "The difference between us leaving this restaurant alive or dead tonight may depend on how convincingly you can play the role of my beloved wife." The threat should have terrified me into fleeing, but something in his tone, the flat certainty devoid of drama or exaggeration, made my blood run cold in a different way. He wasn't threatening me. He was stating a fact. "I can't," You can and you will. He reached across the table, capturing my hand in his. His skin was warm, his grip gentle but unbreakable. Smile at me like you love me, cara mia. Our lives depend on it. Something in his eyes, a flicker of something almost like vulnerability, made me hesitate. Then his thumb stroked across my knuckles in a gesture so intimate it sent heat racing up my arm, and I found myself smiling automatically, my body responding to his touch before my mind could catch up. There she is, he murmured, satisfaction evident in his tone. My beautiful wife. This is insane. I whispered through my smile, trying to keep my expression loving while panic clawed at my throat. I don't even know your full name. Alejandro Vittorio Casciano, he said softly. Head of the Casciano family. And for tonight, your husband of 3 years. The Casciano family. Suddenly, fragments of news headlines connected in my mind: suspected organized crime, racketeering allegations that never stuck, whispers of businesses that mysteriously changed hands after refusing protection. My smile faltered. You're careful, Tesoro. His grip tightened infinitesimally. Some words once spoken can't be taken back. I swallowed hard. You're a businessman, I amended, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. His smile was sharp enough to cut. Very good. A man approached our table, then expensively dressed, but with none of Sandro's refined elegance. There was something coarse about him, from his too loud laugh to his overly familiar slap on Sandro's shoulder. Casciano, holding out on me, you sly dog. The man's gaze raked over me with naked appreciation that made my skin crawl. Never mentioned a wife before. Sandro's expression remained pleasant, but something deadly flickered in his eyes. Mr. Rossi, I don't recall inviting you to my table. Come now. We're practically partners. Rossi pulled up a chair uninvited, his knee brushing mine under the table. I flinched involuntarily. Aren't you going to introduce me to the lovely signora? Before I could respond, Sandro's hand captured mine again, his thumb stroking possessively over the bare ring finger that suddenly felt conspicuously empty. My wife values her privacy, Sandro said smoothly. As do I. Can't she speak for herself? Rossi leered at me. What's your name, beautiful? I felt Sandro tense beside me, the predator ready to strike. Instinct took over, not self-preservation, but the strange urge to protect this dangerous man from whatever was about to happen. Alessandra, I said, letting my voice drop into a husky register as I leaned against Sandro's arm. But only my husband calls me that. Something dark and possessive flashed in Sandro's eyes as he glanced down at me. His arm slid around my waist, pulling me closer until I was practically in his lap. You see, Rossi, he said, never taking his eyes off me, my wife is shy with strangers. Shy? Rossi snorted. Women like that aren't shy. Sandro's movement was so swift I barely registered it. One moment we were seated normally. The next, his hand was somehow on Rossi's wrist, bending it at an angle that made the other man's face drain of color. Choose your next words with exceptional care, Sandro said, his voice soft and all the more terrifying for it. You're speaking about my wife. I should have been frightened. Instead, something molten and dangerous pooled in my stomach at the naked possession in his voice. No offense meant, Rossi choked out, sweat beading on his forehead. Beautiful woman. Lucky man. Sandro released him with a dismissive flick of his wrist. Indeed. Now if you'll excuse us, we're celebrating our anniversary. Rossi retreated, nursing his wrist and his wounded pride. When he was gone, Sandro's arm remained around me, his heat seeping through the thin fabric of my dress. You did well, he murmured against my ear, his breath sending shivers down my neck. But our evening is just beginning. I should have pulled away, should have gathered my things and run as fast and far as I could. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, drawn by some magnetic pull I couldn't explain. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely audible. His eyes darkened as they met mine. "Now we make sure Rossi believes we're exactly what we appear to be, deeply, passionately in love." His finger traced my jawline with feather-like precision. "Can you do that for me, Olivia?" The way he said my name, like a prayer and a sin wrapped into one, made it impossible to think clearly. Or perhaps," he continued, his gaze dropping to my lips, "you'd prefer I take you home to your daughter now. This isn't your world. You could walk away, return to your life, and forget tonight ever happened." It was the first real choice he'd offered me, and something told me it might be the last. I should have taken it, grabbed my purse and fled back to my safe, predictable struggle of a life, back to overdue bills and empty refrigerators and falling asleep alone every night. Instead, I heard myself say, "I can do it." Something like triumph flashed in his eyes. "One night as my wife," he said, his finger still tracing the line of my jaw. "Do exactly as I say, and tomorrow you'll find your financial situation improved." The implication was clear, and pride flared hot in my chest. "I'm not for sale." "No," he agreed, surprising me. "You're not. Consider it compensation for your acting skills. And I always pay my debts." His thumb brushed my lower lip in a gesture so intimate I forgot how to breathe. The intensity of his gaze made me feel like prey and predator simultaneously. "Why me?" I whispered. "You could have chosen anyone." "Not anyone," he corrected. "I needed someone unexpected. Someone Rossi couldn't have investigated in advance." His eyes traveled over my face with clinical assessment that somehow still felt like a caress. Someone beautiful enough to be believable as my wife, but not connected to my world. So I was just convenient. Something flickered in his expression, amusement perhaps, or something darker. "Let's find out how convenient this arrangement will be." He stood in one fluid motion, offering his hand. This time I took it, allowing him to pull me to my feet. The bill appeared and disappeared with a flash of platinum card. Then we were moving through the restaurant, his hand possessively at the small of my back, guiding me toward the waiting SUVs outside. The night air hit me like a splash of cold water as we stepped outside. The city's glow blurred into streaks of gold and red on the wet pavement. 3 SUVs waited by the curb, engines idling, headlights cutting through the drizzle. A man opened the rear door for us. Sandro placed a guiding hand at the small of my back, firm, not rough, and I found myself sliding into the leather interior before my mind could protest. The door shut. The world outside vanished. Silence filled the cabin except for the low hum of the engine. He sat beside me, composed, one hand resting on his knee, the other scrolling briefly through his phone before slipping it into his jacket pocket. "Where are we going?" I asked finally. His gaze shifted toward me, dark and unreadable. "Somewhere safe." "Safe?" I gave a short, nervous laugh. That's not the word I'd use. "You were seen with me tonight, Olivia," he said, his tone low and measured. "That alone changes things." "I didn't do anything," I protested. "You dragged me into this." He turned to face me, the faintest hint of steel flashing in his expression. "You think the world cares about innocence?" The car turned down a quieter street. He continued, his voice a blend of exhaustion and authority. "Rossi saw you. He's not a man who forgets faces. If you go home now, you'll have company by morning." My pulse quickened. Company. Men who ask questions before deciding if they need to bury the answers. I stared at him. "You're telling me I can't go home. I'm telling you, you won't be safe there." He adjusted his cufflink, the motion smooth, detached. "You'll stay at my estate until I decide it's clear." "Your estate?" He looked out the tinted window as the city lights gave way to darkness and trees. Lakeshore Drive past the bridge. Isolated. Private. And if I refuse? His head turned slightly, eyes meeting mine. Then you'll force me to choose between protecting you and protecting myself. And I never enjoy those choices. The SUV slowed as it passed through an iron gate that opened automatically. I caught a glimpse of stone pillars, a long driveway lined with cypress trees glistening in the rain. Beyond them, a mansion rose out of the darkness, vast, commanding, lit in soft amber glow. This isn't real, I murmured. I'm dreaming. Or trapped in someone else's nightmare. Sandro's reply was calm. Reality is often stranger, cara mia. When the car stopped, a man in a dark coat opened the door. Sandro stepped out first, then offered his hand. For reasons I didn't understand, I took it. The air smelled faintly of cedar and rain. The mansion loomed ahead, columns, glass, a grand facade that looked like it belonged in another century. Inside, the marble floors reflected the chandeliers above, and no clutter, no warmth, just precision and silence. A woman approached, elegant, sharp-featured, her hair a sleek dark curtain. Valentina, Sandro greeted. We have a guest. Her eyes flicked to me, assessing in a single glance everything I was not. Polished, prepared, powerful. A guest, she repeated, one brow arching. Or a problem? Both, he said simply. She smiled without warmth. Then I'll make sure the guest room is ready. I can't stay here, I began. I have a daughter. She's safe, Sandro interrupted him. My head snapped toward him. What do you mean she's safe? She's asleep in the guest room down the hall from yours. Mrs. Patel delivered her 15 minutes after we left Stellato. She believed it was part of a surprise arranged by you. My knees nearly buckled. You took her. I brought her, he corrected evenly. You should thank me. Rossi's men were already watching your building. Anger and fear warred inside me. You had no right. I had every right, he said quietly, stepping closer. You think this is a game? Rossi doesn't forgive public humiliation. Tonight you embarrassed him. That means he'll come for blood. Yours. Or hers. I swallowed hard, my throat tightening. He reached out, touching my chin gently, not to restrain, but to make me look at him. I don't want her hurt. So she stays here. You both do. Until when? Until I decide it's over. That's not an answer. It's the only one you'll get tonight. He turned to Valentina. Show her the room beside Emma's. As Valentina led me down the corridor, the echo of my heels on marble sounded like a metronome counting down the seconds of my old life. When she stopped before a door, she looked back over her shoulder. You should understand something, she said, her voice smooth but edged with warning. My brother doesn't bring people here. Not ever. If you're under this roof, it means one of two things: he intends to protect you, or he intends to use you. Her eyes held mine for a beat longer. Either way, Olivia Reed, you'd better decide which one you prefer. The door closed behind her with a soft click inside. The room was breathtaking: high ceilings, velvet drapes, a view of the lake shimmering under moonlight. A small shape stirred on the bed, Emma, curled up, fast asleep, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Relief hit me so hard my knees went weak that I sank beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. She sighed in her sleep and murmured, Mommy. Tears I hadn't realized I'd been holding back slipped down my face. Behind me, I heard the faintest creak. I turned. Sandro stood in the doorway, half in shadow, watching. You said we were pretending, I whispered. We are, he replied. But sometimes the best lies need a touch of truth. Why me? I asked again, voice breaking. His gaze softened just a fraction. Because you remind me of someone I once loved and lost. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with things unsaid. He lingered a heartbeat longer, then turned away. Get some sleep, Olivia. You'll need it. The door closed, leaving me in the dim glow of the bedside lamp, the steady rhythm of my daughter's breathing, and the terrifying realization that I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Morning light filtered through the tall windows, tracing golden lines across the velvet curtains. The stillness of the mansion was unsettling, the kind of quiet that felt deliberate, controlled, like every sound here had to ask permission to exist. I woke to the faint aroma of coffee and the distant hum of voices. Emma still slept, her small hand clutching her stuffed rabbit. For a moment, I almost convinced myself the night before had been a fever dream, until I noticed the silk robe folded neatly at the foot of the bed and a note written in elegant handwriting. Downstairs. 8 a.m. When I entered the dining room, the vastness of it hit me. Crystal chandeliers, polished oak, portraits of people who looked like they'd been born into power and never questioned it. Sandro was seated at the head of the table, a newspaper in one hand, a cup of espresso in the other. He didn't look up as I entered, but I could feel his awareness stretch toward me like static. Sleep well? He asked casually. As well as someone can after being kidnapped, I said, crossing my arms. Kidnapped implies. You were brought here against your will, he replied, finally meeting my eyes. You agreed to come. I didn't agree to stay. That's semantics. He folded the newspaper and set it aside. Breakfast. I ignored the food. I want to take Emma home. He studied me for a long moment. Home isn't safe. Not yet. Then make it safe. You clearly have the power to control everything else. A faint smile tugged at his lips. You give me too much credit, Carmia. Even I can't control everything. Valentina entered then, carrying a file and wearing an expression that suggested she hadn't slept at all. She set the file down beside Sandro. Rossi's men have been circling Meridian Insurance. 2 cars were seen near the Blue Orchid as well. Her gaze flicked toward me. He's looking for her. Sandro nodded slightly. Then she stays. Valentina crossed her arms. Do you even realize what you're doing? Bringing a civilian here? With a child. His tone was calm. I'm aware. She's not Sophia A. Leandro. The name hit me like a slap. Who's Sophia? Valentina's lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. Someone you should pray you never have to compete with. Enough, Sandro said quietly, but the steel in his voice silenced even her. Valentina shook her head. You're making a mistake. She left without another word, the door closing sharply behind her. I turned back to him. Sophia. That's your wife's name, isn't it? His jaw tightened. Was. I waited, but he said nothing more. Finally, I broke the silence. You said I reminded you of someone. You meant her. He didn't deny it. She died 6 years ago. Car accident. 7 months pregnant. The matter-of-factness in his tone made my chest ache. I'm sorry, I said softly. He nodded once, like he'd long grown numb to condolences. She had your eyes. I looked away, uncertain how to respond. And now you're using me to replace her, I murmured. To play her ghost. If that's what you need to believe, he said, his voice low, then believe it. That's not an answer. He rose from his chair, and the sheer presence of him filled the room. I needed a woman Rossi wouldn't question. One who could pass as my wife without drawing suspicion. The resemblance made it efficient. Efficient. I laughed bitterly. So that's what I am to you. A convenient illusion. His eyes darkened. Don't mistake pragmatism for cruelty, Olivia. I keep you here because it keeps you alive. And what about Sophia? I asked, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Is that why you keep her alive too? By pretending I'm her. Something flickered across his face, pain maybe, or memory gone before I could name it. He took a step closer. Be careful, Olivia. You don't know what you're asking. Then tell me. His gaze locked on mine. Sophia was the last person who trusted me. And it got her killed. The silence that followed was suffocating. He turned away, shoulders tense, jaw set. After a moment, I spoke quietly. You can't keep living like this. He didn't look back. I'm not living. I'm surviving. The admission hung in the air, fragile and raw. Finally, he exhaled. Rossi isn't just an enemy. He's a man who enjoys taking what's mine. That night at Stellato wasn't chance, it was bait. I needed him to see something he couldn't touch. And that something was me, I said. That someone, he corrected. For now. He moved toward the window, hands in his pockets, eyes lost in the lake beyond the glass. You want honesty, Olivia? You're not just here because of how you look. You're here because when I watched you sitting alone in that restaurant, I saw something I recognized. Loneliness. The kind that eats people alive. The raw truth of it left me speechless. He finally turned back, his expression softer but still unreadable. I didn't plan this. But now that you're here, I won't let Rossi use you to get to me. You talk like you own me, I said quietly. His reply was almost a whisper. No. But for now, I'm the only one who can keep you breathing. He took a step closer, stopping just shy of touching me. His voice lowered to something almost intimate. Stay close, Olivia. Stay where I can see you. Or what? I challenged. Or I won't be there when you need me. And somehow, despite every instinct screaming that I should run, I believed him. Maybe I just like control, he murmured. Maybe that's what keeps people alive in my world. And what about in mine? I whispered. His hand rose, brushing a stray strand of hair from my face. In your world, maybe you pretend control doesn't matter. But I've seen you, Olivia. You survive by holding everything together with your bare hands. I swallowed hard. Because I have to. Exactly. His thumb grazed my cheek, barely a touch, but it set off a tremor under my skin. So maybe we're not so different after all. He should have stepped back. He didn't. Neither did I. The space between us vanished in a heartbeat. The kiss wasn't planned, it was inevitable, the collision of exhaustion, fear, and the dangerous comfort of someone finally seeing you. His lips were warm, steady, not gentle but deliberate. My hands found his shirt without permission, and for one suspended moment, the world ceased to exist when he pulled back, his breath mingled with mine. Perhaps some mistakes, he murmured, are worth making. I didn't have an answer. My pulse was a drumbeat I couldn't silence. He straightened, reclaiming composure faster than I could. You should get some rest. What if I don't want to? I asked before I could stop myself. His eyes darkened. Then I would stop being a gentleman. I exhaled shakily. Do you ever get tired of pretending you still are one? He smiled, that dangerous, heartbreakingly human smile. Every day. The next morning, breakfast felt different. He was already there. Tie loosened, papers spread before him. The atmosphere between us vibrated with unspoken memory. Valentina entered, taking in the scene, eyes narrowing. So it begins, she muttered under her breath. Sandro didn't look up. Careful, sorella. You think I don't see what you're doing? Valentina snapped. You're setting yourself up to repeat the same story, different face, same tragedy. This conversation is over. She glared, then stormed out, her heels echoing down the hall. He turned back to me as though nothing had happened. I need you to stay close to Emma today. I have business in the city. What kind of business? The kind that keeps you both breathing. I don't want your money, I said suddenly. If this is about what happened, it's not, he interrupted. But it could be. I'm not for sale, Sandro. I know. He looked at me then, eyes unreadable. That's why you're still here. He stood, buttoning his jacket. I'm sending 2 men with you and Emma to the greenhouse near the west wing. She'll like the garden. And if I refuse? He smiled faintly. You won't. He started toward the door, then paused, looking back. You asked last night why I chose this life, he said quietly. The truth is, I stopped choosing a long time ago. But you still can. I frowned. What are you saying? I'm saying, Olivia, that if you want to leave, really leave, I'll make it happen. Enough money, new identity, new start. You disappear. No strings. The word stunned me. You just let me go? He hesitated. If that's what you wanted. Why? He looked at me for a long, long moment, then said, because keeping you would be selfish. And I'm trying for once not to be. Before I could respond, he was gone. I took Emma to the greenhouse that afternoon. She ran between rows of white roses, laughter echoing under glass and sunlight. When she turned to show me a petal caught in her hair, I saw movement outside the window, one of Sandro's guards standing watch, scanning the horizon. For the first time, I realized what safety meant in his world. It wasn't freedom. It was a cage made of loyalty and fear. And somewhere deep inside that cage, something in me had already begun to care for the man who built it. The day began with sunlight and ended in silence. Sandro left before dawn, saying only that he had business in the city. His tone was calm, but something in his eyes, that distant, guarded storm, told me it wasn't routine. He didn't say where he was going, and I didn't ask. But when Valentina appeared in the corridor hours later, her expression stripped of its usual poise, dread began to crawl through me. He's in the city, she said tightly. Business meetings, Isabel told you? Her laugh was sharp and cold. Is that what he said? I felt the chill of her words. What are you implying? That he's gone to meet Rossi. Alone. The name hit me like a physical blow. Why would he do that? Because Rossi claimed he had information about you, she answered, her tone dark with urgency. Something Sandro would want to hear privately. Information about me? I shook my head. That's impossible. There's nothing to. Valentina cut me off, her gaze suddenly full of something I hadn't seen before, pity. Everyone has secrets, Olivia Reed. Even those who think they don't. She turned sharply toward the door. Stay inside. Keep your daughter close. Tell security if anyone approaches who isn't family. Is it Rossi? I whispered. Always, she said grimly. But this time my idiot brother went to meet him without his men. And then she was gone, leaving me with the echo of her heels and the icy knowledge that Sandro Castiano, the man who terrified half the city, was walking straight into a trap. I found Emma with Isabel in the playroom, happily building a tower of blocks shaped like Sandro's house. Mommy, look! I made Sandro's mansion. It's beautiful, sweetheart, I said, forcing a smile while my pulse thundered. Then softly to Isabel. Valentina said something's wrong. Do you know where he is? Isabel hesitated, her composure slipping. Mr. Castiano left instructions. You and Emma are to remain inside with enhanced security. Beyond that, I know nothing, but he wouldn't want you to worry. Too late, I murmured. For hours, I paced the marble floors, checking my phone, calling Valentina's number. Nothing. By dusk, the silence had become unbearable. Then Valentina's phone rang. She answered instantly, listening, and the faintest tremor crossed her face. Where? She demanded in Italian. Condition. Understood. Lock it down. No one in or out. We're on our way. She hung up and turned to me. They found him. Hospital on the north side. Private entrance. My breath caught. He's alive. For now, she said. 3 broken ribs, punctured lung, concussion. He was conscious when they found him. I'm coming with you, I said immediately. Your daughter is safe with Isabel, I cut in. I'm not asking permission. Something flickered in Valentina's eyes, surprise, then reluctant respect. Perhaps I underestimated you, Olivia Reed, she said. The car leaves in 3 minutes. Don't make me wait. The drive through the city was a blur of streetlights and sirens, my mind spinning with every possibility to the hospital's private entrance. Men in dark suits waited Sandro's security detail, their expressions grim. A doctor met us in the corridor, speaking rapid Italian. Valentina's knuckles whitened as she listened. 3 broken ribs, punctured lung, concussion, she translated flatly. He was conscious when they found him. That's something. I swallowed hard. Can I see him? Valentina's gaze sharpened. Why? What is he to you really, Olivia? This man whose world terrifies you? Whose life goes against everything you claim to value? Her words pierced straight through me. He's someone who checked under my daughter's bed for monsters, I said quietly. Someone who remembers how I take my coffee. Someone who looks at me and actually sees me. My voice broke. And he's hurt because of me. Valentina stared at me for a long beat, then nodded once. Room 312. You have 5 minutes. The private suite was dimly lit, the rhythmic beep of machines breaking the silence. Sandro lay on the bed, pale against the white sheets, one arm bandaged, bruises blooming across his face. When he heard my footsteps, his eyes opened, still sharp, still impossibly focused. Olivia, he rasped. Tears pricked my eyes. You idiot. What were you thinking going alone? A ghost of a smile curved his lips. Not the bedside manner I was hoping for, cara mia. I sank into the chair beside him. Valentina told me what happened. About Emma's father. About Jason Miller. His expression darkened. Miller works for Rossi. Has for years. Enforcement, distribution. The worst kind of man. I didn't know, I said, voice shaking. When I met him, he was just a small-time dealer. If I'd known, I know, Sandro interrupted softly. His hand reached for mine, weak but steady. Your face when you saw Rossi at the restaurant, that wasn't recognition. You had no idea. I knew that. Relief flooded through me at the simple trust in his tone. Why did you go alone? Rossi contacted me directly, he said, his voice low. Said he had information about your past. Professional courtesy, he called it. I knew it was a trap, but I needed to know what he knew about you. So you risked your life for information about me? I whispered. That's insane. That's business, he countered. Information is power. And now you know, I said. You know Emma's father works for your enemy. Sandro's gaze darkened. The man who contributed DNA to your daughter is a criminal of the worst kind. That doesn't make him her father. He tightened his grip on my hand. A father protects, provides, loves. He did none of those things. The truth of his words hit deep. What happens now? I asked. Rossi knows about me. About Emma. He knows how to hurt you. My weakness, Sandro murmured, his voice rough. Is that what you think you are to me? I looked at his battered body, the bruises, the tubes. The facts speak for themselves. Rossi miscalculated, he said, voice low but burning with conviction. He believes caring for someone makes you vulnerable. He doesn't understand it can also make you more dangerous. Even injured, he radiated that quiet, lethal strength. "What did they do to you?" I asked, reaching out to touch the bruise along his cheek. He caught my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm. "Nothing that won't heal." "Sandro, was Miller there?" "Yes." His voice hardened. "Rossi's right hand now." He confirmed Emma is his biological daughter. The room spun. Does he want to see her?" No, the single word carried relief and fury in equal measure. He expressed no interest beyond using her as leverage. "He'll never come near her again. You have my word." The fierce protectiveness in his voice made my heart twist. "Thank you," I whispered. He shifted slightly, wincing. "You should go home. Emma will worry." "I'm not leaving you," I said firmly. Something softened in his gaze. "Stubborn woman," he murmured, voice rough with affection. The door opened. Valentina, flanked by Sandro's men. "The doctor says you can be moved to the house by morning. I've arranged private nursing staff." Sandro nodded, already slipping back into command. "Rossi will be watching. Double the perimeter security. No one in or out without my word." "Already done," Valentina said. "And the other matter?" "Handled," he replied. "Have Paolo bring the car for Olivia. She's returning to Emma." I started to protest, but Sandro's hand squeezed mine gently. "Go to our daughter," he said quietly. The words froze me. Our daughter. It should have sounded wrong. But it didn't. Felt like a promise. Like belonging. That I leaned forward, pressing a trembling kiss to his forehead. "Promise me you won't do anything reckless." He smiled faintly. "Define reckless." "Sandro, I promise," he said softly. "I'll come home to you. Both of you." Valentina cleared her throat pointedly, but there was warmth in her eyes now. That I stood reluctantly, my hand slipping from his at the last moment. "Be safe," I whispered. "Always," he said, eyes following me until the door closed behind. The drive back to the mansion blurred in a haze of headlights. When I arrived, Isabel greeted me at the door, her calm professionalism slightly frayed. "Emma's still sleeping," she said. "I've been checking on her every half hour as instructed. And Miss Valentina called ahead. Medical staff are preparing the East Wing for Mr. Castiano's return. You'll notice more guards on the grounds." "Thank you," I said softly. "I just need to see my daughter." Emma was asleep, clutching her unicorn plush, her face peaceful in the glow of the nightlight. I brushed her hair from her forehead and whispered, "You're safe, baby. You're safe." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure if I was comforting her or myself. Outside the window, armed men patrolled beneath the moonlight, and I realized the truth. The trap wasn't just Rossi's, it was fate's, the one that bound me, my daughter, and the wounded man who had just risked his life for both of us. The rain returned the night Sandro came home. By the time the convoy of black cars reached the Castiano estate, the sky was split by lightning. That I stood at the window, watching headlights cut through the darkness. When the doors opened, Valentina stepped out first, then Sandro, walking slowly, still pale but upright. The moment he looked up, our eyes met through the glass. That I ran to meet him. He was bandaged, limping slightly, but the same quiet command clung to him like armor. "You should be in bed," I said, breathless, voice trembling between anger and relief. That he smiled faintly. "I told you I'd come home. You almost didn't." "Almost," he agreed, brushing a raindrop from my cheek with his thumb. "But I'm a man of my word." Behind him, Valentina gave a small nod to the guards. "Perimeter secured. Rossi's networks are folding fast. Our people are picking them off one by one." Sandro's jaw tightened. "Not fast enough. Rossi won't stop until he's forced to," Valentina warned. "And Miller. I'll handle Miller myself," he said sharply. "He's the one who fed Rossi your name, Olivia." He's the reason they knew where to look. The world tilted. Jason. My voice cracked. He told them about me? He sold information to Rossi months ago, Sandro said quietly. Debt, greed, I don't care which. He put you and Emma in their crosshairs. Anger surged through me, sharper than fear. Then let me talk to him. He owes me more than silence. Sandro's gaze hardened. You'll get your chance. Tomorrow. The next afternoon, Valentina led me through the private garage, a silent, metallic labyrinth at the far end. A steel door opened to a room that smelled of oil and gunpowder. Jason Miller sat in a chair, his wrists bound, a bruise blooming across his jaw. He looked smaller than I remembered, a shadow of the man I'd once thought I loved. Olivia, he croaked, eyes darting toward Sandro. What are you doing here? You shouldn't be. I shouldn't be alive, you mean? I snapped. Because of you? I didn't know he'd go after you, Jason said quickly. It was business. You sold information about me and my daughter to a man who kills people for sport, I said, voice trembling. That's not business. That's betrayal. He looked at me then, guilt flickering beneath the fear. I made a mistake. Sandro stepped closer, his presence filling the room like a storm. Mistakes have prices. You've been given a choice, Miller. You sign these papers relinquishing any parental claim to Emma, and you walk out of here alive. Jason's eyes widened. You can't just— I can, Sandro interrupted, his tone deadly calm. And I will. Or we do this another way. Jason looked from Sandro to me, voice breaking. He's using you. Don't you see that? No, I said. He's protecting me, something you never did. Tears welled in Jason's eyes. I loved you once. You loved what you could take from me. I whispered. Silence fell. Then Sandro set the papers on the table and placed a pen beside them. Your signature, he said. Or your life. Jason hesitated for a long, trembling moment, then bent forward and signed. When the pen clattered against the metal table, Sandro nodded to Valentina. Let him go. Jason looked up in shock. That's it? You're letting me walk? Sandro's expression was unreadable. You're already a dead man. Whether it's Rossi's men or your own guilt, it'll find you soon enough. Jason swallowed hard and left without another word. When the door closed, I exhaled shakily. You didn't have to let him live. Yes, Sandro said quietly. I did. Killing him would make me what Rossi thinks I am. He turned to me, eyes dark but soft. And I'm trying, Olivia, for once to be better than that. Later that night, the storm broke again and I found Sandro in the study, staring out at the rain-slicked courtyard. The firelight caught the edges of his scars, fresh reminders of the war he fought in silence. Rossi won't stop, I said softly. He won't have the chance. His voice was quiet, final. By sunrise, his empire will burn. I stepped closer. And what about us? He turned, his eyes meeting mine. That depends on what you want. I don't even know what's real anymore, I whispered. Everything that's happened, it's all built on lies, on fear. And yet, he said, moving closer, you're still here. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because he was right. He reached for my hand, his bandaged fingers brushing mine. You think I'm asking you to stay because I need you. But I'm asking because I want you. I don't belong in your world, Sandro. He shook his head. Then I'll build a world where you do. I let out a shaky breath. You can't keep saving me. Then stop running from me, he said. Let me stand beside you. The rawness in his voice cracked something open inside me. I felt the tears before I realized I was crying. Why does it feel like every choice hurts? I whispered. Because the ones that matter always do. He pulled me into his arms not as a command, but a plea. For the first time I didn't resist. The steady beat of his heart against mine felt like an answer to T-Dawn. The news broke. Rossi was dead. His warehouses raided. His men scattered. The Castiano network held firm. Sandro returned home just as the first rays of sunlight spilled across the lake. He looked exhausted, blood on his sleeve, but alive. When he saw me waiting in the courtyard, he stopped. "It's over," he said simply. "Is it?" I asked. He studied me, then stepped closer. "The war is. What comes next, that's your choice." I looked at him, at the man who had dragged me out of an ordinary life into something terrifying and irrevocable, and realized I no longer saw the monster the world whispered about. I saw the man who had risked everything and given me back more than I'd thought I deserved. "I don't know where this ends," I said quietly, "but I'm not ready to walk away." His hand found mine, warm and certain. "Then we start from here." The first light of morning touched the lake, turning it to gold. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was surviving, that I was living. Weeks passed. The city slowly returned to its rhythm, and the storms that had ruled our nights gave way to sunlight. For the first time in what felt like forever, I woke without fear. Sandro had kept his word. Rossi was gone. The Castiano Empire stronger than ever, but quieter now, almost at peace. And somehow, within that silence, I'd found mine. I stood on the terrace one morning, watching the lake shimmer beneath the pale gold of dawn. The gardens below were alive again, vines trimmed, roses blooming, laughter echoing from somewhere near the gazebo. Emma's laughter. I turned and saw her running across the grass, her curls bouncing, a small white puppy chasing after her, all paws and energy behind them. Sandro followed at a slower pace, dressed down in a white shirt and rolled sleeves, sunlight turning his dark hair bronze at the edges. The sight was so disarmingly ordinary it almost hurt. "Mommy! Look! Cosimo can catch!" Emma threw a small ball, the puppy tumbling after it, tail wagging wildly. Sandro caught the ball midair before the dog could. His reflexes impossibly quick. "I think Cosimo just lost," I called out, smiling. He looked up at me, that familiar spark in his eyes. "He'll learn. Like the rest of us." When they reached me, Emma was breathless with joy. "Can we keep him forever?" Sandro crouched down beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Forever's a long time, Piccola. But yes, I think he's home now." Emma squealed, hugging the puppy, and ran off again, leaving us standing together in the sunlight. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sounds were the distant hum of bees and the ripple of water against the shore. Then Sandro said quietly, "You could leave now if you wanted. No more guards, no more threats. Rossi's gone. The world doesn't know your name." I looked at him. "Is that what you want? For me to leave?" He shook his head slowly. "It's what I should want." He hesitated, then added, "But I'm done living in shoulds." The honesty in his tone hit something deep inside me. I stepped closer. "I never asked for this life." "I know," he said softly, "but you survived it. You made me want to survive it too." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, a ring, delicate and simple, nothing like the heavy gold symbols of his empire. "This was my mother's," he said. "Not for what it's worth, but for what it means." He looked at me, eyes steady. "You once said control isn't the same as safety. You were right. I can't promise safety, Olivia, not in my world. But I can promise honesty, loyalty, the truth even when it hurts." My throat tightened. "That sounds a lot like love." He smiled faintly. "It is." He took my hand, slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit as though it had been waiting there all along. "Welcome home, cara mia," he whispered. The words wrapped around me like sunlight, dissolving everything that had come before, the fear, the doubt, the lonely dinners for one that I glanced toward the garden, where Emma twirled barefoot in the grass, her laughter carrying through the wind for the first time in my life. I wasn't looking for escape. I was exactly where I wanted to be. Sandro's hand found mine again, warm and certain. The garden sounds perfect, I said quietly. He smiled, leaning in until his lips brushed my hair. Then let's grow something real. The camera of the world seemed to pull back. The lake glittered, the mansion no longer a fortress but a home. A man who'd once lived by fear stood beside a woman who'd once lived by survival, and between them a child's laughter, bright and unbreakable. Sometimes redemption doesn't arrive in grand gestures. Sometimes it comes softly in sunlight, in second chances, in the word home. In another life, she sat alone at a table for one, never knowing that the man who would change everything was already walking toward her. He came from darkness, she came from pain, but together they built something neither had dared to dream of. Because sometimes redemption doesn't roar. It whispers. It takes your hand in the quiet morning light and says, "Welcome home." Before we fade out, if you believe that even the most dangerous hearts can still learn how to love, make sure to subscribe. It's free, and it helps us share more stories from Desire Tales.